Hello everybody, it's Peter with an I, as to A-W-A-R-T. Welcome to segment 2 of, I don't know, the Dark Tower, I guess. Before we move on, allow me to say a quick word about one of my other YouTube projects, the one entitled PIRSViola-1-2. If you've never been into electronics, but you've always been curious, go to PIRSViola-1-2. This is the first in a series of tutorials which takes your little hand and walks you through some of the basics of electronics and computer programming. And now we return to, I don't know, the Dark Tower, I guess.
Chapter 2. Frank shifted his weight from one foot to the other foot. His feet were killing him. He couldn't very well sit down and take his shoes off while he was on the clock. Frank had heard before that in old New York, guys who had some extra cash to spare would hire people to wear their new shoes around to loosen them up. Frank always thought this was a silly waste of money, but now it didn't seem like such a bad idea. In fact, it seemed like a highly valuable service. He could sure use that little extra bit of comfort to make it through his miserable shift. Frank also thought that walking around in shoes for a job was ridiculous, but after a quick mental summary of his employment, Frank had to admit that it was more than what he was doing. Those people got to walk around and they performed a service for somebody. Frank's only purpose, his only function, was to stand there on a Formica platform wearing designer clothes while mall-goers wandered past. Ideally, this was the kind of job that Frank would dream about, and the only thing better than standing there doing nothing would be sitting there and doing nothing.
Oh, righteous dude.
In reality, it was a horrible job that sapped his spirit and drained his energy. Frank would have felt better if he could at least show off the clothes by dancing around, or shouting into a megaphone, or talking people into buying the merchandise. But no, he was instructed to stand there in a handsome, young, arrogant man pose, with his hair slicked back. He sort of felt better when some younger kids would come along and be impressed with his appearance, and think that if they bought the same kind of clothes he had on, they could be cool, just like him. He wanted to shake them and shout, "I'm not cool, I'm Frank!" But then again, he was pleased that the younger kids thought he was neat. And besides, clutching customers and dissuading them to buy the product isn't something the businesses look kindly upon. Oddly enough, the most gratifying days were those in which younger kids came along and teased him. He could at least clock out feeling like he had suffered a little bit for his paycheck. The kids who teased him, usually skater punks, had the illusion that, due to the laws, morals, and strict patterns of conditioned behavior, Frank, who was an employee of the store, couldn't hurt them. How wrong they were. Frank could hurt them. Severely. Frank possessed a monkey gene that, on rare occasions, caused him to become confused. During such confusion, he would forget about the boundaries of acceptable behavior, thump his foes, and stand over them beating his chest. Fortunately, during such episodes of confusion, he temporarily lost the ability to use sticks, or stones, or any other objects that could be categorized as a tool. As Frank stood there evaluating his self-worth, he noticed a guy staring at him from a distance. It was a mean stare. Frank wondered if maybe his face was just molded like that, and the man simply went through life being misunderstood as being mad when he was actually happy. Usually people get such a hassle from everybody. Over time they either turn into grouches, who are always on the defensive, or they start buying all their clothes at the golf course gift shop to advertise that they're really laid back and easygoing. People with faces naturally molded into angry, grouchy expressions are usually best suited to be sports trainers of some kind. The trainees are constantly saying to themselves, "Coach must be upset because I'm not dedicated enough. Gee, I should really try harder." Hey, pus guzzler. the man called out in a hoarse, caustic voice. Frank immediately recalled who it was. It was Potty Mouth. Potty Mouth was an awful person, whose soul could be compared to a dried-up old potato with green hair. He was like one of those mushrooms that look like black stones, and if you step on them, they spew out poison spores. His words always seemed to hang in the air like a bad smell. Judging from the first 3 words out of his mouth, Frank assumed he was up to his old crotchery. "Frank, you little piece of poop," he greeted him with a chuckle. "How you doing?" Frank smiled and went through the customary routine of reporting how he was doing, what he had been up to, and if he was dating. Of course, Potty Mouth asked him if he was into guys yet. It was as if he was greeting an old friend, but still, he couldn't forget history. A leopard doesn't change its spots, it only puts on sheep's clothing. As they talked back and forth, Frank endured all sorts of cutting little comments, simply because he knew that he would only have to put up with them for a few minutes. He was surprised to see that Potty Mouth was wearing fairly nice clothes. It's like he'd just been shopping at the golf course gift shop. That's partly why Frank didn't recognize him right off the bat. Frank didn't fall for the conclusion that, all this time, Potty Mouth was simply misunderstood, and that he was really a good guy. Frank was completely sure that Potty Mouth was hard poop, and if he had to be around him for anything more than an hour, he would have to reenact the scene near the end of Return of the Jedi, where Darth Vader picks up the evil Emperor, gives him such a fearsome superatomic bear hug that electricity flies out of his ears before throwing him down a hole, which was sort of like a space-age garbage disposal / bug zapper. "So, I've been shopping at these nicer stores, because the quality is a lot better. The only thing that bugs me are the pretty boys like you with their noses sniffing after my wallet I carry in my back pocket," continued Potty Mouth. Frank grinned and nodded, and listened to Potty Mouth talk about how he was spending the money he earned through some financial investments and other type of legitimate wheeling and dealing. His old house out there in the pines was condemned, and as far as he knew, it had fallen in on itself. Nowadays, he was living in a place he bought near the ocean. Potty Mouth didn't mention that he bought it for cheap, and he sure wasn't gonna tell him why he bought it for cheap. Frank was only half listening while Potty Mouth ratchet-jawed away. He knew that the perfume lady was watching him talking to a customer when he should be just standing there doing nothing, and Frank assumed she was getting all irate and wished Potty Mouth would be on his way. In truth, the perfume lady just looked like she was mad all the time, and really, she wanted to socialize on the job and look to other people to set an example to pave the way for her. "So, Franco, I was thinking about going to this new place up the way. The one with the yellow trim and the broken statue of the eunuch out front." Frank looked like he was trying to think of what the restaurant was called, but really he was trying to come up with an excuse as to why he never wanted to see this awful, smelly sock of a man again. "It's called something like Pinch My Butt." The place was called Panache en Bleu, and the statue was actually a rendition of the Venus de Milo. Frank had to chuckle at that one, and for a moment he was tempted to accept the offer. Frank's manager, who took a break from sitting at his desk, looking at a pile of paperwork for inventory, dreading the act of actually doing inventory, came strolling up with a look of fake confusion. He knew Frank was socializing when he should just be standing there, but he didn't want to reprimand him on the spot, in front of what could be a high-paying customer or a regional manager. "Hi, can I help you with anything, sir?" Most people would be a little bit embarrassed, sheepishly say that they were just browsing, and be on their way. Others might craft some excuse as to why Frank was socializing. Potty Mouth sneered and replied, "Yeah, you can help me pull the stick out of my craw so I can beat you with it." The manager didn't know what to say or do, so Potty Mouth told him what to do. "Get lost, Pinocchio." The manager didn't deserve such awful treatment. At the same time, he totally deserved it.